Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you, as always, for taking the time to join today's live stream. So for today's live stream, of course, we're going to go over a very unique topic, and you'll have to forgive me because I do have the hiccups at the moment. Hopefully, it'll subside here soon. But what we're going to be talking about today is about steady state cardio versus high intensity interval training, which is better. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Again, I apologize for the hiccups. Hopefully it'll go away pretty soon. I've tried to get it to go away before I started, but it is what it is. But anyways, so this topic is going to go over various different points as it relates to cardio in two different forms. This being steady state cardio as well as high intensity interval training. So that's the two main points that we're going to go over today, and I'm going to explain exactly what these 2 points mean so that you have a better understanding of what steady state cardio is versus high intensity interval training. Now, HIIT training I've actually talked about in the past, but I will touch a little bit on it more. So, uh, so outside of those 2 points, what we're going to be talking about is some of the cardiovascular benefits that come with these exercises, as well as efficiency, which is better for a busy lifestyle. And I'm going to discuss the difference between those two. I'll also talk about muscle retention and strength, which helps preserve muscle, sustainable and long-term adherence. So these are the different points we're going to go over. And again, I hope that you guys will find this helpful and valuable. Again, I wanted to sort of go over into detail how cardio plays a key role into our overall workout routine. And it's not something that I've talked about as much. So I do want to go over that in this particular live stream. So again, we're going over two different points here, and I want to explain exactly what these two methods are. So what exactly is steady state cardio? So steady state cardio refers to cardiovascular exercise performed at a consistent or moderate intensity for an extended period. This can typically be 20 to 60 minutes. So basically, with steady state cardio, you're going to have, of course, a steady heart rate. So this is around 50 to 70% of your max heart rate without significant fluctuations in effort. So again, keep in mind with steady state cardio that the cardio is consistent. You're not really going through, say for example, like intervals like we're talking about with high intensity interval training. This is more of a consistent sort of speed that you're doing with steady state cardio. So again, this is performed at a consistent and moderate intensity for an extended period. So again, we're thinking 20 to 60 minutes is going to be what steady state cardio is. So this is a continuous rhythmic movement. This includes running, cycling, swimming, or brisk walking. So moderate intensity, of course, is sustainable effort for long durations. So to better identify moderate intensity, it would be pretty much an intensity where you can, again, sustain it for a longer duration than if you were doing something high intensity where it's not like you're doing the cardio in a short burst, but in a more sustainable and longer effort. So this uses the aerobic energy system when you're in this steady state cardio sort of exercise, in that it primarily burns fat for fuel. And this also helps to improve cardiovascular endurance and stamina when we're talking about steady state cardio as well. So with this method, of course, this is pretty common. You've likely heard of this method, even though you may not heard it in this specific way. So the next point we're going to go over is high intensity interval training. And I'm going to explain further on really, comparing and contrasting these two specific types of training methods. But again, first, I want to explain exactly what these training methods are to get started. Again, I apologize for the hiccups. Hopefully, it'll go away. So, high intensity interval training is a training method that alternates between short bursts of intense exercise and brief recovery periods. These workouts are designed to maximize effort in a short amount of time, increasing cardiovascular efficiency and fat burning potential. So, like I've mentioned before, I've talked about high intensity interval training, and I've done both of the training methods mentioned here. So, this is not just a topic that I'm just kind of throwing out to you. I have done both of these training methods. So, high intensity interval training, and when we're comparing it to you know, just steady state cardio, it's a totally different sort of beast in itself. And basically, if you're somebody who's wanting to really focus on, improving endurance and things of that nature, this is going to be really the really good option for you. So, explaining a little bit further on high intensity interval training. So, this is short, intense exercise intervals, which are usually 20 to 45 seconds of work and then a 10 to 60-second rest. So, you're going to alternate between high intensity effort and recovery, and it can be done with body weight, weights, or cardio machines. High intensity interval training is very flexible, so it's a little bit different than when we're talking about cardio. Of course, cardio is more focused, steady state cardio is more focused on just your simple, methods of cardio at a moderate intensity. Whereas this mixes a little bit of exercise and workouts alongside, the cardiovascular benefits itself because you're doing, intervals and you're going through a really rapid succession in exercise. That's why this is beneficial for cardio because of the fast paced. And we're not only just doing exercises and taking, a long rest. We're doing a really short rest and we're, continuously going through exercises and not only just, normal body weight exercises, but also cardiovascular exercise and things of that nature. So of course you're going to alternate between high intensity effort and recovery. Again, usually it's short rest periods that you're going to go through. Again, it's done with body weight, weights, or cardio machines. The workout lasts roughly 15 to 30 minutes, but are very highly effective. It engages both aerobic and anaerobic energy systems. So, unlike when we're talking about the steady state cardio, one energy system is being used primarily for that because you're not going into a high intensity sort of level. So, you're not using as much, functions of the body to perform that type of workout. Whereas with this, you're going to be using a ton of effort, and energy systems in the body to perform it effectively. One thing I do want to mention when it comes to these two methods is you're going to notice a difference in how much time these two methods takes. So when we're talking about steady state cardio, again, going back to steady state cardio, you're seeing here that it's roughly 20 to 60 minutes that you're performing this specific type of cardio. So this type of cardio takes longer. Of course, that's the big difference here is that it takes longer. But again, the reason why it takes longer is because we're at a moderate intensity. So, you can't to, sustain something, when it comes to the high intensity interval training, a thing you need to understand is that it's shorter because we're doing things in a more higher intensity. So when you're talking about moderate intensity, it's going to be longer. So depending on what you want to necessarily focus on related to your goals is what's going to make the big difference here. So do you want something that's more focused on endurance, something that's quick that you can get through, and something that, is really, maximizing your effort, then maybe high intensity interval training is what you want to focus on. If you want to focus on a simple, cardio routine that still gets you really good benefits, it still is very beneficial in many ways. However, you want something that's at the same time, maybe you have a little bit of extra time and it's something that you can perform pretty consistently. Maybe steady state cardio is, the option that you want to choose. So again, these methods are dependent on your goals. And like what I've mentioned with high intensity interval training, and I know I'm going back and forth here, but I just want to show you guys these slides back to back so you're sort of understanding the difference between what these two are. So So for somebody who's really focusing on really simple fitness goals and just really wanting to overall build an overall, workout routine, as well as somebody primarily focusing on, goals like it relates to muscle gain, I think it's more beneficial to have the steady state cardio to have at least 20 minutes or 60 minutes in your routine. Less likely for muscle gain, of course. Muscle gain and cardio is a whole nother topic that I would discuss. But when it comes to muscle gain, of course, you want to have a proper balance in your cardio, and that's why I mentioned that. So when it comes to high intensity interval training, again, going back to high intensity interval training, this method may be for somebody, again, like I mentioned, somebody focusing on performance, wanting to really, get a good exercise, a really fast paced exercise done in a really quick amount of time. You know, this is really somebody who is maybe on a tight schedule, as well as somebody who's wanting to focus on performance, really to build their endurance. That's where I see high intensity interval training playing into, as far as a goal set in mind. Like I've mentioned, I've done these two different methods, and high intensity interval training is not really my method. It's a very challenging method, and I'm not saying that it's not effective. It's just not for everybody. For me, I'm more focused on steady state cardio because, again, my goal is on muscle gain. If you're somebody who may be focusing on fat loss, high intensity interval training may be your particular area that you may want to, try as it relates to, having cardio in your routine. But for me, and, a lot of times with my clients, usually they don't focus on this type of method. But the reason why I'm mentioning this method is it can be very effective. Like I said, I've performed workouts that are involved in high intensity interval training, and they're very fun workouts to perform. They're really quick and they're fast paced, and you get a good workout in a short amount of time. But again, it's not for everybody. And keep in mind that these workouts are really, again, fast paced, so you're not getting a lot of rest. You're going through a lot of times with these, you're not really using a lot of weights either. That's another thing to keep in mind. Is it's mostly body weight workouts, and then you do, of course, there's some that mix a little bit of cardio machines in there. So it just kind of depends on what you want to focus on. Again, like I mentioned before, it's all about, what goals you're setting for yourself to, differentiate which one you want to choose. So, what are the benefits of cardio exercise? So, I know that we talked about these two training methods, but what overall is the benefits of cardio exercise? And for everybody, I think everybody should have cardio in their routine. It doesn't matter what your goal is. I believe that cardio should be an essential part of your workout routine. I do it myself, and I used to neglect cardio whenever I sort of shifted from when I used to really enjoy doing cardio, but then I shifted to weightlifting. And so I really wanted to maximize, really gaining muscle. So I kind of stopped doing cardio, but I neglected to find the benefits of cardio, because there's a lot of benefits that come with cardio. And when you coincide it and connect it with weightlifting, it's very effective. You just have to have the proper balance. But again, let's go over what the benefits are when it comes to adding cardio in your exercise routine. So, cardio exercise is also known as aerobic exercise. It is any activity that raises your heart rate and keeps it elevated for an extended period. It engages the heart, lungs, and the circulatory system, improving overall cardiovascular fitness. So, here are some of the benefits that come with cardio exercise. And this is cardio exercise overall. So it increases heart rate and breathing rate. It uses large muscle groups in a rhythmic manner. It's sustained for a period of time, typically 10 to 60 minutes. It improves endurance, burn calories, and strengthens the heart, and it can be performed at low, moderate, or high intensity. It's a training method that's very flexible, but has many benefits, and it can have a lot of benefits in your overall workout routine even if it's muscle gain that you're focusing on or fat loss. There's both benefits from them. So, like I mentioned, when it comes to cardio, it's going to improve your endurance. when you integrate cardio into, say, like a muscle gain routine, it does benefit whenever you're performing your workouts. If you're doing weightlifting workouts, you have more endurance when you integrate cardio in your routine, allowing you to get through the workout without feeling exhausted. So that's one thing that you're going to notice if you properly incorporate a good balanced routine, as far as it relates to cardio, and then when you're focusing on a muscle gain goal, you can have good benefits from, being able to perform your weightlifting workouts effectively. Now, what I mentioned when it comes to balancing cardio and, muscle gain, and I know this is not really inside the topic that we're kind of talking about, but I do want to touch on it because this is one thing that there's a big misconception about. And a lot of people don't realize that when you are focusing on muscle gain, you have to be very meticulous with how much cardio you improve, or excuse me, how much cardio you integrate into your routine, because if you have too much, it can sort of go into where you're burning into muscle. So you need to have a good balance into how much you do in an overall routine. So I do want to answer Wayne's question here, where it says his question is just to make sure I understand something you said. If your focus is muscle gain, then steady state cardio is likely to be more complementary with that goal than HIIT. Yes, that is correct. And the reason why I mention that steady state cardio is more beneficial, and again, keep in mind, I know that steady state cardio is longer in different ways. But when you're focusing on muscle gain, you want to focus on at least roughly 20 minutes. You don't want to, of course, go into a really extended amount of cardio. So the steady state cardio is going to range from 20 to 60 minutes. And for me, I always integrate at least, within that 20-minute range of cardio. So that's where you need to focus your goal at, is within that specific range. So again, it's wide ranging. So somebody who's focusing on, if they may be focusing on more of, just really getting an overall workout routine, they could do 60 minutes of cardio and that's fine. They may not have a specific goal like muscle gain. And so they may be just focusing on just overall health. So that's pretty much the difference there. So I know that, it almost sounds in a way like I contradicted what I said when I mentioned, because of balancing your cardio routine, that you don't need to have too much cardio when it relates to muscle gain. But what I'm meaning there is that you want to have the lower end, so you want to stay within at least 20 minutes of cardio in that steady state routine. And the reason why too I mentioned that HIIT training is not as optimal when it comes to muscle gain routine is because you're burning a ton of calories rapidly. And so you don't, with this method, you're not really going to have, a way to where you could integrate, weightlifting, because you would be extremely exhausted after that specific training method because it takes a lot of energy out of you. And that's why I mentioned that HIIT training is not as optimal, whereas steady state cardio is more optimal. You just need to have a proper balance in the amount of cardio that you integrate into your workout routine. And that's what I mentioned there. So I hope that answers your question a little bit better, and to clarify that. Um, Again, time efficiency, and I sort of discussed this a little bit, but you're going to notice the difference in time efficiency between these two methods, which earlier I sort of went back and forth between those two slides. But steady state cardio, of course, is a longer duration, 30 to 60 minutes. It can be 20 minutes as well. But just in a general guideline is that it's roughly in that range. It's going to burn moderate calories over time. Lower intensity is easier on joints as well, and it's ideal for fat adaptation and endurance. And so high intensity interval training, or HIIT training, is a short duration, roughly 15 to 30 minutes with max effort. Again, keep in mind, high intensity interval training is max effort. It's going to burn more total calories per minute, and exercise, EPOC, exercise post oxygen consumption effect, metabolism stays elevated for up to 24 hours after this particular exercise. So it can be beneficial for exercise when we're talking about high intensity interval training. This is ideal for time crunched individuals seeking faster fat loss. Again, that's sort of the differentiation between time efficiency here, as well as sort of the benefits that you're getting in an overall sort of roadmap of what you get with these two different training methods. So, muscle retention and strength, which helps preserve muscle. So, again, like I mentioned, and I touched a little bit about muscle gain and cardio as well, but just to keep these things in mind, is when it comes to steady state cardio and muscle retention, to be able to retain muscle and that it's not, affecting your muscle growth if you're doing a weightlifting routine. This method is best for recovery and endurance, but too much can interfere with strength gains. And again, that's what I mentioned. It's a really delicate balance when we're talking about muscle gain and having cardio in your routine. So it's recommended 2 to 3 times per week, roughly 30 to 45 minutes overall in a week, preferably, or excuse me, 30 to 45 minutes in a day, or of course over a week's duration, preferably after strength training. Usually that's when I integrate cardio into my routine, is roughly, right after I work out. I usually don't do it before. It can still be beneficial to do it before as like a warm up, like if you're doing, a quick running session, that's completely fine. For me, I always do post workout. I do it at least roughly 15 to 20 minutes is usually where I sort of fall in. And I usually, of course, get, 15 minutes a day. So I usually always do cardio at the end of my session. So every day, throughout the week, I work out 5 days a week. So I do 15-minute sessions each day. Again, you don't have to do them every day, but that's the way that I do them to get a good cardio routine in my workout. So HIIT training and muscle retention, like I mentioned, this isn't as optimal as when we're talking about steady state cardio, but it does have its benefits. And it can be a little bit difficult to integrate it into your routine because of just the high intensity, effort that it takes to perform these workouts. So short bursts of high intensity exercises, 80 to 90% max heart rate with rest periods. This can boost testosterone and growth hormone, supporting muscle maintenance. It is recommended between 2 to 3 times per week, 15 to 25 minutes to maximize fat loss while keeping muscle. So this one I would recommend. Of course, you're going to do it in lower durations if you're wanting to try to incorporate it with a muscle gain routine. And then you're still kind of going to stay in that 2 to 3 times per week. But this one, you don't want to overdo it because the high intensity interval training is really an extremely delicate balance if you're wanting to retain muscle. But that's not to say that it's not possible. What I'm trying to mention there is that it's a little bit more difficult if you're doing something more high intensity, back to back and trying to incorporate it into a muscle gain routine versus if you have something that's, more moderate intensity, it's going to be easier to sort of balance that a little bit better. The difference here too is time. Of course, if maybe you're short on time, high intensity interval training, you could integrate that. You just have to, be aware of how to properly balance that. Whereas if you have a little bit more time, steady state cardio is what I would recommend, especially for somebody with muscle gain. And then, of course, having a proper balance is still important in that method. So I hope that that clears things up here and sort of understanding the difference between these two methods and how you can still perform either of them, even though they may have their differences, different advantages and disadvantages. So sustainable long-term adherence. So when it comes to steady state cardio and adherence, the few things you need to keep in mind is that lower intensity is easier to maintain over time. It's going to be very easy to stick to this type of routine versus HIIT training because of the lower intensity, because it doesn't require as much effort. So again, it's all dependent on your goals and how you want to integrate, these cardio methods into your routine. It's enjoyable for those who prefer longer, lower impact movement. Again, walking, cycling, and swimming, that's going to be your steady state cardio. The challenges can feel repetitive. It can be time consuming and less exciting for some. Steady state cardio can be boring. To be honest, it's not the most fun, type of cardio method. But if you're somebody who, is okay with the lower intensity, is okay with, longer times to get through your cardio session, then this is a good option. So how do you do HIIT training and stay adherent to that routine? So time efficient, again, it's more shorter, it's a shorter, more intense sessions that you're going to have with HIIT training, so it is more time efficient. So you're having 15 to 30-minute sessions in HIIT training. It's not ideal for everyday daily training. Again, because it's high intensity, you're not going to do it every day. It's not recommended to do it every day. And it can lead to fatigue and burnout if overdone, if you do too much of that type of training method. So the challenges, of course, is that this does require more high effort when it comes to high intensity interval training, which can lead to both mentally and which can be mentally and physically draining. So I hope that that gives you sort of an understanding between those two different training methods. So an example cardio session would be 2 to 3 times a week for steady state cardio per week, 30 to 45 walk, 45-minute walk, cycling or swimming. That's where your steady state cardio plan would be. If you were doing HIIT training again, that's 2 to 3 times HIIT per week, 15 to 25-minute sprint intervals, body weight circuits, anything of that nature is going to be under HIIT training. And then, of course, you would do 1 to 2 active recovery days, light stretching, yoga, mobility work, things of that nature. So, again, for example, let's say we're wanting to primarily focus on the steady state cardio. We would roughly do that 2 to 3 times per week for 30 to 45 minutes, either walking, cycling, swimming, whichever cardio method we're wanting to, perform, whichever method we want to do. And then, of course, from there, we want to have at least 1 to 2 active recovery days where it includes light stretching, yoga, mobility, any stretching or, dynamic stretching, static stretching, any recovery method that you're comfortable with doing, you would do for those active recovery days. Active recovery is a whole nother topic that I would talk about in another live stream because it does sort of it's not only about just your rest days, but it's about staying slightly active on rest days, and that's probably something I'll discuss in the future. But I just wanted to give you an idea on how this works if you were to integrate these training methods into a routine. So, for example, if we say that we're going to choose, the HIIT training, we're going to do 15 to 25 minutes of sprint intervals or body weight circuits, whichever HIIT training method we're wanting to do, 2 to 3 times per week, while also having at least 1 to 2 active recovery days with the light stretching. So I hope that's understandable. Again, we're not combining the two methods. I'm giving you an overview that for each training method, you're doing 2 to 3 times a week and then you're doing that duration, for those specific training methods, and you're having at least 1 to 2 active recovery days in that routine. So you've got, if you're doing 2 to 3 days and then 1 to 2 days, that's roughly a 4 or 5 days in a week, and that's how your training would be. Alrighty, guys. So I know that this was kind of a little bit of a unique topic, and I know that I talked about a lot of different things here as it relates to both these training methods as well as cardio overall. So I hope that this was a little bit digestible. I try to, as much as possible, to really make these things more understandable and that it's more accessible to you guys who may not be as familiar when it comes to fitness, and exercise, and make it into something that you could see, creating a routine yourself or, sort of gradually building into a workout routine. Because this stuff can be very, it can be very daunting and be very challenging, especially if you're just getting started. And that's how it was for me when I started. It was, very overwhelming trying to figure out a lot of these different methods, which method is right for me, because there's so many options, when we're talking about, you know, not just cardio, but when you're talking about weightlifting, you've got many options there. There's cable workouts, you've got free weights, you've got strength training machines. There's a lot of options. And so it's hard to understand which method that, I need to work on. And that's what I want to try to do again with these streams is to give you a better idea on understanding these methods and really, sort of giving you a clear picture. Okay, this method may be a little bit better for me than this other method. And that's what I'm trying to get across here with, discussing these two types of cardio exercises. So thank you guys once again for taking the time to check this live stream out. You can check out my website, bponlinefitness.com, as well as contact me here below. I will have another live stream next Wednesday. I have been working on it, and it's going to be talking about mindset. I'm going to be shifting gears a little bit outside of just talking about workouts and exercise and cardio, of course, and talk a little bit about mindset and how to really adhere to your workout routine and how to, really challenge yourself and build a strong mindset to where you stay consistent and motivated towards reaching your goal. So that's what I'm going to be talking about next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'll have that event posted soon. But thank you guys once again, and I will see you guys next Wednesday again in the next live stream. But thank you guys for your support, and I'll see you then.